Basic appraisal procedures, page 180, page 181. Residential construction and home inspection. Chapter 6. This chapter discusses the basics of residential construction, from the process of building a new house to its parts and systems. Building codes, permits, and inspections are also covered. The section on building codes also mentions some typical building code deficiencies. Next, the styles, parts, and systems of houses are examined, focusing on the main systems important to a well-functioning house: electrical, plumbing, and heating. Finally, home inspections are studied as the culmination of everything discussed in the chapter. Professional home inspectors and some areas covered by home inspections are also mentioned. Extra note: sales are best for residential and I don't know what that is, and lot maybe. Cost is best for new. Income is best for rentals. Page 182. Why learn the basics of residential construction? We begin by looking at the process of having a house built. As an appraiser, it is important to have some working knowledge of a house, its construction, and its systems. From a general point of view, appraisers need to be able to recognize the quality of building materials and construction. Although the appraiser is not acting as a home inspector, recognizing construction deficiencies is important, so disclosure can be made in the appraisal report and further investigation by a trained construction professional recommended. Today, more than ever, appraisers are being held to a higher degree of accountability. Fannie Mae, for instance, no longer allows the appraiser to assume that an adverse condition is not present in a property. Appraisers who perform appraisals for FHA and VA are bound to recognize minimum construction and condition standards that conform to the agency's criteria. If the cost approach has been deemed applicable and necessary, the appraiser must be able to recognize the quality and types of materials used in the structure for the purpose of establishing accurate reproduction costs. As this chapter relates to proposed construction, the appraiser is often involved in the construction process, from the point of the initial plans and specifications to the final completion of the construction project. An important initial step in the assignment of a proposed new construction is examining and analyzing the building plans and construction specifications. From that point, the appraiser will analyze the proposed materials and labor costs of the improvements for the purpose of the cost approach. Sometimes this process may reveal proposed costs that are actually higher than typical for the market, or proposed elements that have diminished contribution. This could result in the client being at risk due to the costs substantially exceeding what the house could bring in a resale market. A proposed construction estimate may also be lower than that typically found in an area. This situation could be especially troubling to a lender, as this might be an indication that construction funds could be exhausted before the house is completed. Key terms: BTU, British Thermal Unit. Amount of heat needed to raise the temperature of 1 pound of water by 1 degree Fahrenheit. Measure of furnace. AC capacity. Building code. A means of setting construction standards, requiring builders to use particular methods and materials. Building codes are adopted by authorities under their exercise of police power for building codes to be enforceable. Building inspection, process whereby local authorities, sometimes engineers, are charged with ensuring compliance with prevailing building codes. Concrete footers, base that a foundation sits on, must be poured on solid ground below frost depth and wider at the bottom than the structure to be supported. Foundation, basic structure on which the rest of the house will rest, can be concrete slab, pier and beams, crawl space, or basement. Important points. Although an appraiser is not acting as a home inspector, recognizing structural deficiencies and being familiar with the construction process are important aspects of the job. Lenders rely on appraisers to verify that standards are met with regard to the loan approval and payment during the construction process. Page 183. As the construction project progresses, the appraiser is often asked to observe the stages of completion for the purpose of draw reports that the lender can rely on for the release of payments to those providing work and materials. For their reasons, it is important for an appraiser to understand and recognize what the typical building process is. The process of building a new house. There are various steps that are typically taken during the process of constructing a new house. The complexity of these steps will vary depending on each individual project. However, typically there are 10 basic steps which begin with the early research and planning phase and end with the final completion of the construction project. Research and planning. Although it is not thought by most to be an actual phase of the construction process, careful research and planning is an essential first step for any new construction project. Good research and planning should result in a financially sound decision that meets the goals of the homeowner's lifestyle and satisfies their desires. Without good forethought, the construction project could be clouded with problems and pitfalls from the beginning. Choosing a style of house that is faddish, not conforming to an area, opting for a poor location, using materials that are not consistent with the market segment, or simply not considering the individual's requirements and future needs are examples of poor research and planning. At this point, it should already be concluded that the prospective new homeowners have already eliminated existing houses as a choice, and that only a new house will meet their needs and desires. Once this decision is made, several other factors should be considered by the new homeowner. What type of house do I want? How much should I spend? What features are important to me? How long will I live there? Key terms. Framing. Basic load-bearing skeleton of the house to which interior walls, exterior walls, and roof are attached. Can be platform, post and beam, or balloon. Home inspection. Visual examination of physical structure and systems of a house. Manufactured housing. Any dwelling unit built on a permanent chassis and attached to a permanent foundation system is a manufactured home for purposes of Fannie Mae's guidelines. Permits. Official government documents that acknowledge the proposed work meets the department's standards and grants permission for it to be performed. Pitch, the rise of a roof as stated in vertical inches per horizontal foot. Rough ends, any type of interior work to a house or building that is not part of the finished work. For instance, plumbing, HVAC, electrical. Triple net, they pay some of the taxes and insurance.